I've said this before, that Anthony Albanese doesn't seem to understand that he's Prime Minister. Too often he behaves like a spectator of national events, not as a leader. Too often he comes across as a protester or lobbyist asking for change rather than as a leader delivering change. It's a real problem on a range of issues, on the economy, on energy, on international affairs, anti-Semitism, confronting terrorism, Indigenous disadvantage, and now domestic violence or crimes against women. You see, it's this passive attitude that leads the Prime Minister to join protest marches instead of delivering guidance and reform. So yesterday, Albanese joined a protest in Canberra over domestic violence. Now, just what that achieves is beyond me. A Prime Minister joining a demonstration seems absurd. The whole idea is to raise the profile of the issue and draw it to the attention of politicians. So it's like a politician lobbying himself. Now, that's not to understate the issue, of course. As you know, I went big on this problem last week, all week, because the loss of lives is terrible and because courts in particular are not doing enough to protect women from threatening, abusive men. I mean, you can have all the protests in the world, but what would really help women is that when a magistrate considers bail for an allegedly violent, obsessive partner, then the bail is rejected. Courts must err on the side of protecting the lives of potential victims rather than the liberty of the alleged offenders. Still, Albanese really made a mess of his appearance yesterday. Watch here as he claims they didn't want him to speak, and watch and listen to the response from the organiser, Sarah Williams, on the right of screen.
To be clear, we did ask to speak, myself and Katie, and we're told that that wasn't possible, and that's fine. I respect the organiser's right to do that.
That's a full-out lie.
To do that. We're here today to demand that governments of all levels must do better, including my own, including every state and territory government.
Yeah, she called it a lie and she immediately became emotional and was comforted by others. But watch more as the PM seems to see the torment caused by his words, but he looks on and then ploughs on regardless.
Exposed to 28.
We're here as well to say that society and Australia must do better. We need to change the culture, we need to change attitudes. We need to change the legal system. We need to change the approach by all governments.
Strange days indeed, hey? The thing is, if Albanese was told he wouldn't speak, how did he end up with the microphone? That organiser has explained her version of events.
So I said to the audience, do we want him to speak? I wanted the audience to choose, not him. And whilst I was saying that, he said behind me, which many people heard, I'm the Prime Minister, I run this country. And I think that's what really triggered me the most is that the abuse of power there, that the fact that he thought that his position as the Prime Minister, he can do whatever he wants in that moment.
And this morning on breakfast television, the Prime Minister didn't deny having that sort of heavy-handed exchange.
So she said you're on the stage with her and there was confusion about, who was going to speak. And then you said behind her on the stage words to the effect of, I'm the Prime Minister and I run the country. Did you just say that?
Well, Nat, I'm not going to get into, that sort of debate.
Well, she's come on national TV and she's saying that in radio and TV around the country today. That, unfortunately, is the message that's being sprouted. And we know it's unfortunate, but you could put it to bed now.
Well, Nat, people, including Channel 7, were there for the recording of everything that went on.
What an ugly and damaging turn of events for the Prime Minister. On one level, it's a sideshow rather than the main event. But on another level, it's all created by the PM's refusal to lead rather than follow. And by the way, just imagine if this was Scott Morrison or Tony Abbott. The press gallery and the ABC would be shouting misogyny from the rooftops. Remember, Albanese joined in all that misogyny abuse of Abbott and Morrison, so he should do better. He's really been hoist on his own petard on this stuff, turning up at a rally to support women, but offending at least some of them. But again, the key point here is his whole approach. He's promising money, he's calling a national cabinet, he's even trying to cast the shadow of blame over all men and saying that our culture has to change. All of this ducks the real issues that politicians can deal with right now. When there are violent and obsessive men, and sadly, there will always be evil among us, it's silly pretending we can educate evil away. When our criminal justice and legal systems are dealing with allegedly violent and threatening men, they need to prevent them hurting women. They need to protect the women. They need to keep the men in custody when necessary and provide protection for the women. That's what needs to be done. That's the obvious and difficult reality. Men who march in the street about this might be signalling their virtue, they might be showing their understandable concern, but we don't need politicians at protests. We need the politicians to actually take the action, make the changes, show the leadership that's required. Keep allegedly violent offenders away from the women that they allegedly threaten.